The star of Chimp Crazy was arrested recently. What's up with Toni Haddix? Next on the PETA podcast with Emil Guillermo. Welcome to the PETA podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo, your host for this inside look at animal rights. Brought to you by PETA, the largest animal rights organization in the world. On this episode of the PETA podcast, if Chimp Crazy is the most popular documentary ever shown on HBO, then Toni Haddix may be the most popular reality star with a chimpanzee addiction. She was recently arrested for violating the terms of her bond after authorities found a chimp in her basement in Missouri. This latest violation may help keep her behind bars for a while for her criminal conduct involving the abuse of chimpanzees. PETA's Brittany Peet, General Counsel, Legal and Corporate Affairs, says she's not shocked by anything that Haddix does. In my conversation with Peet, she explains where the saga is going legally.
Toni Haddix is an exotic animal broker, and that is someone who buys animals from shady exotic animal breeders and sells them to the highest bidder, whether that is a person in a private home or a roadside zoo. Toni Haddix does not care, and her bread and butter is selling primates. And then when PETA filed its Endangered Species Act lawsuit against the Missouri Primate Foundation and its operator a number of years ago over the neglect and exploitation of its chimpanzees, Toni Haddix thought that she could help get the owner of this facility out of the lawsuit by taking over ownership of the chimpanzees. What she actually did was get herself added as a defendant in the lawsuit, too. Toni and PETA eventually came to an agreement to settle the lawsuit, executed a consent decree under which PETA would be able to transfer 4 of the 7 remaining chimpanzees to an accredited chimpanzee sanctuary. Toni would be able to keep 3, including a male chimpanzee named Tonka, if she complied with a number of really strict conditions, including constructing a new appropriate enclosure for the animals and a number of other conditions. Well, Toni didn't do any of that. And so under the agreement that we made, PETA was at that point able to transfer all 7 of the chimpanzees to a sanctuary. But when we showed up to move them, there were only 6. And Toni told us and critically the court that Tonka had died. And you see this all play out in Chimp Crazy, but eventually we found out after a nationwide search and issuing a $10,000 reward along with Alan Cumming, who had starred with Tonka in a movie, we found that Toni had faked Tonka's death and lied to a federal court about it. And he was, in fact, in a tiny dark cell in her basement. He was rescued and now he's safe and living at a sanctuary in Florida.
She denied she had him.
She did. She told the court that Tonka had died, that her husband had burned his body, and that all that was left were ashes.
So ultimately, is that why she's arrested the second time?
So after Chimp Crazy came out, PETA sent a letter or filed a motion with the federal court in our ESA case calling for additional contempt to be leveled against Haddix and urging the court to renew a referral to federal prosecutors to charge Toni for perjury and obstruction of justice for all of the court orders that she violated. And there was a lot of additional evidence that neither PETA nor the court knew about relating to Tonia's perjury and obstruction that were revealed in Chimp Crazy. And so we provided the court with a detailed list of all of that new evidence. Toni was indeed charged with those federal crimes. She pleaded guilty to both felony perjury and obstruction of justice charges. Separately, PETA had previously been awarded a nearly $250,000 fee award against Toni for all of the legal fees other costs that PETA had to undertake in order to find Tonka and untangle her lie. And so as part of our collection proceedings, PETA submitted requests to both Haddix and her husband, Jerry Aswegan, as well as businesses that both of them own. And they refused to comply with the requests to provide information about their businesses. They failed to show up at a hearing about this after the judge ordered them to. And so the judge issued what's called a writ of bodily attachment, which is essentially a civil arrest warrant. So before that happened, there's a lot going on with Toni Haddix right now. Yeah. Before that, a couple weeks before that happened, federal authorities with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Internal Revenue Service executed a search warrant at Toni Haddix's house. And they found an adult female chimpanzee in her basement in that same dark cell that she was hiding Tonka in. And so as a result of that, Tanya was out on bond on her federal charges. And the fact of her keeping this chimpanzee in her basement violated her bond. She wasn't allowed, as a condition of her bond, to violate any of the court orders in the civil case with PETA, one of which provided that she was never allowed to own or possess a chimpanzee again. And she had also failed to report that chimpanzee to local authorities, which was a misdemeanor. And so Tanya was arrested and hauled into jail for violating her bond. At this point, the judge has revoked her bond in her criminal case. And so she will remain locked up until her federal sentencing on August 7th. And while incarcerated, she was served with PETA's writ of body attachment. And so that is another part of what is going on with Tanya right now.
All of this is raining down on Toni Haddix. They found this female chimp. She shouldn't have had that. I mean, it was like the conditions. I mean, this is kind of like a chimp addiction she has, I guess.
They didn't call the docuseries Chimp Crazy for nothing. Tanya just keeps violating court orders. She keeps breaking the law. And that is why PETA is urging the judge in her case to issue her the harshest penalty possible. We were able to submit a victim impact statement to the court as part of Tanya's upcoming criminal sentencing. And that was one of the things that we asked for. And I drafted the statement before we knew about the chimpanzee. But one of the things that PETA said in its statement is, this is a person who will continue to violate the law, will continue to hurt animals unless and until she is physically locked up and prevented from doing so. And so that's what we're asking the court to do.
There's the aspect of $240,000 or $250,000 in legal fees. That's important. And then there's the federal charges. What's next for Haddix? What can she see on August 7th when the judge, I presume, will sentence her?
So on August 7th, we've seen a couple of things so far in both the government and Toni Haddix's filings relating to the sentencing. Tanya is asking for a sentence of 6 to 12 months behind bars, and the government has recommended a sentence of 4 to 5 years. The judge can do whatever the judge wants, essentially, given just the blatant level of disrespect that Toni Haddix has shown toward the court and the massive scale of the perjury and the obstruction, given that millions of people saw her engaging in that illegal activity in Chimp Crazy. I think we can expect, and Tanya can expect, the judge to be furious with what she's done. And so I'm really interested to see what happens on August 7th.
If they choose to make an example of Toni Haddix, and she was seen by millions, what is the message if they give her the harshest penalties? And what would be the harshest penalty? And what would the message be then sent to the millions of people who saw her, some of whom may idolize her? What should the message be, you think, with what happens during the sentencing?
Toni Haddix receives a significant prison sentence, which we hope and expect that she will, it shows other people who are exploiting animals, who are engaging in trafficking of wild animals, who are involved in litigation with PETA and just litigation in general, that if you fail to follow the law, if you fail to follow court orders, you will be locked up behind bars and you won't be able to exploit animals ever again because you will be in a cage yourself. It's a really, really critical and important message, especially on this massive scale with national and international press all watching and paying attention to what happens to Tanya on August 7th.
So you think the maximum isn't too much. And what would that maximum be, you think?
Well, the government is asking for 4 to 5 years in prison. The judge has discretion to increase that if the judge wants to. But a sentence of 4 to 5 years behind bars would certainly be appropriate for the level of disrespect and hostility that Toni Haddix has shown to the court in this case. And she's not being punished or sentenced in this case for cruelty to animals or for neglect or for exploiting Tonka or even for anything relating to this new chimpanzee who was found in the basement. But that all provides context to what happened here and underscores just how serious this conduct was. And we do expect the judge to consider that as well. And we could see, and I think we probably should expect to see additional charges, federal charges leveled against Tanya as the weeks and months unfold.
So what's interesting is that the main driver of this sentencing is really her disrespect for the law.
Absolutely. This sentencing is strictly about committing perjury and obstruction of justice, lying to the court, violating court orders, in connection with her faking Tonka, the chimpanzee's death, and all of the other violations of court orders and hostility toward the court that we saw in Chimp Crazy. And so in addition to Chimp Crazy being such a great educational tool for the public to see just how cruel it is to keep highly intelligent primates in private homes and in roadside zoos, the evidence that we were able to take from that docuseries is also directly led to these federal charges against Tanya.
And the chimpanzee who was found in her basement locked up, well, what is her status and what will happen to her now?
So she's an adult. She's an adult female chimpanzee, and there's not a lot that we can share about her right now. What we can say is that no thanks to Toni Haddix, she's safe. And when we're able to share more about her, we will.
And once again, just does anything that happen, the Toni Haddix story just never ends. It just keeps, there's these little twists, and a lot of it is because of her lies and her behavior. But does anything really surprise you about what can happen in this case?
I've seen a lot of crazy things in my career. I worked on Joe Exotic's case, after all. Toni Haddix is something new, and I am not capable of being surprised by Toni Haddix anymore. I just continue to be disgusted by her actions and her inability to satiate her need to exploit and neglect exotic animals, especially chimpanzees.
One final thing on the 250,000 or so estimated in court costs. That's a significant thing too. It's an award that PETA gets, and of course, if PETA did receive that, it would just go straight into working on behalf of animals and making sure that we don't see repeats of this situation with Haddix and Chimp Crazy. But how significant is the fee to PETA and your ongoing work?
The award is extremely important. It's another way to dissuade other people from engaging in the kind of conduct that Haddix did. from violating court orders. And PETA has an obligation to its donors to who provided the funds that PETA used to sue Haddix and to rescue Tonka and to find him. PETA has an obligation to its donors to do everything possible to recover those funds in order to use them to help more animals. And so that's exactly what we're going to do.
Brittany Peet, we'll be following you in the sentencing. Thanks for being on the PETA podcast.
Thanks so much.
PETA's Brittany Peet, General Counsel, Legal and Corporate Affairs, talking about Toni Haddix. We'll follow up as we come close to sentencing. And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to send a link of the show to your friends. Tell them you like the PETA podcast. You can contact us at PETA.org. You can see me on AMOK.com or find this podcast on YouTube at EmilAmuck1. Once again, thank you for listening. Check out all our episodes on your favorite podcast app or on Apple Podcasts, where you can subscribe to as well as rate and review the show. It helps get the word out about the issues you care about. Our music is provided by Carbon Works. Check them out on YouTube. And join us again next time for more insight into animal rights and the fight for a cruelty-free world on the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo.